Tasar, tasor, tasar. No matter how you spell it or pronounce it, tasar is a fabric as exotic as its name. A variety of silk spun by a wild species of silkworm. Sericulturists call tasar non-mulberry silk. Silk has been India's thread of history. Centuries ago, Indian silk was prized the world over. During the reign of the Roman Emperor Aurelian, it was worth its weight in gold. India produces all varieties of silk: mulberry, tasar, eri, and muga. It's only since independence that tasar has become a fashion fabric with export status. The story of tasar begins with the private life of Mr. and Mrs. Anthoria Mylitta. Unlike Shakespeare's 7 Ages, they have only 4: egg, larva, pupa, and moth. After a seclusion varying from 30 to 180 days, the moths emerge from their little house of silk for a few crowded hours of glorious life. Mr. Sports Brown, Mrs. Grey or Yellow. Their courtship is short and sweet. They literally live on love and fresh air. She lays about 200 eggs. Mission complete, her life is over. About 10 days later, the babies appear. 5 millimeters long, weight 8 milligrams. They are very choosy in their diet. Only leaves of certain select trees will do: arjun, sal, or asan. Though small, they are greedy guzzlers. Eat and grow fat is their motto. As for manners, they have none. They cast off their coats 4 times and solve all disposal problems by eating them. Munch, munch, munch go the green gluttons, till they are about 130 millimeters long and weigh over 6,000 times their original weight. Having gorged all they can in about 30 days, they purge themselves. Well fed, they prepare for a long nap. As in food, so in sleep. They are very fussy. Only a couch of silk will do. So they spin themselves luxurious boudoirs, their cocoons. In this hideaway, the ugly worm turns into a beautiful moth. These cocoons are made from a silken filament secreted by the master spinners. The little house of silk is ready. A marvel of construction completed in 2 to 3 days. Each cocoon contains about 1,000 meters of continuous thread. Thread for tasar silk. India's rich forest wealth makes it one of the leading producers of tasar, second only to China. Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and Orissa are the principal producers. In remote forest villages, far from the madding crowd, live the Santals, the Hos, the Mundas, and many other tribes of Adivasis. Their main occupation is the rearing of tasar. It is an art known to them for generations. The skill also lies in reeling a continuous thread with an even twist. Silk is reeled on natwas or reels. Children of the forest, the Adivasis lead a simple life, a life which finds expression in the rhythms of their dance. But life is not all music and dance. There's work to be done. The time for rearing is late summer or autumn. They follow age-old methods. The seed eggs, placed in a leaf cup, are tied to the host tree. Soon the tree is swarming with worms, a feast for ants and lizards, birds, bats, and bugs. The rearers must be constantly on guard. They must protect their precious worms from many enemies. Pests are trapped on sticky sticks. But in spite of all effort, nearly 40% of the worms are lost. Disease also takes its toll, about 30%. Some infections are hereditary. In such matters, the poor, ignorant Adivasi is helpless. Throughout the growth period, the rearers are vigilant. Dislodged worms are replaced. When the worms have eaten their hosts bare, they are taken to fresh pastures. The worms mature in 4 to 6 weeks. They select shady places between leaves to build their refuge, their little house of silk. A week later, the cocoons are harvested. With good management, the cocooning ratio can be high. Left to nature, it is about 30%. Cleaned and strung in garlands, the cocoons are ready for the reeling industry. The harvest of the first crop is usually kept back for breeding. The second and third crops go to the market. The weekly market, or hut, a regular feature of Adivasi life. Everything is bought and sold here. Business may be brisk or slack, but bargaining is an art. To help the thousands who depend on tasar rearing for their livelihood, a central tasar research station was set up at Ranchi in Bihar in 1964. Scientific methods are worked out to exploit to the full the great potentialities of tasar silk. Here all the major problems of tasar culture, plantation, drainage, rearing, and reeling are tackled. The tribal method of rearing worms on tall trees in fields and forests is time-consuming and uneconomical. It is difficult to control parasites and predators. In an economic plantation, the plants are closer spaced. Overlapping branches facilitate the movement of worms. Management and supervision become easy. Even on poor rain-fed soil, an economic plantation can be raised. With proper care, Asan, Sal and Arjun, the main host plant, will thrive. By and large, the tribals store their seed cocoons under unhygienic conditions. This results in heavy pupal mortality. For best results, the cocoon should be housed in cool rooms. Disinfecting the storage room with formalin prevents contamination. Before storage, the cocoons are sorted out, the bad ones rejected. The seed cocoons are hung in garlands with space in between for air to circulate and for the moths to emerge. Soon the sleeping beauties awaken. It is time for the marriage rite. Some prefer the privacy of small bamboo baskets, one to a pair. A rude interruption to the honeymoon. The bride is kidnapped and shut in a basket to breed. She lays her eggs and dies. But that's not the end of her story. A post-mortem is held. A smear from every moth is examined for infection. If diseased, her eggs are destroyed. Only the healthy are reared. The disease-free eggs are disinfected and dried. Young worms are reared on economic plantations under nylon nets. This protects them from birds and insects. After about 3 weeks, the worms are transferred to forest trees. An economic plantation takes about 3 years to be ready for rearing purposes. Rearing silkworms on plantations yields 80 cocoons per laying, or 32,000 cocoons per hectare. It is suggested that in forests, the young silkworms should be reared on twigs in water bottles covered with polythene. They are sheltered from the sun, rain, and wind. The cover is removed daily for airing. After 3 days, the worms are transferred outdoors. This method yields 50 cocoons per laying against the conventional 20. The worm is a genius. It spins a beautiful cocoon. But it takes more than a worm to make fine silk. Men at the CPRS help to complete the cycle, help to work out new and better methods of tasar culture. The reeling cocoons are stored in test-proof ventilated rooms. Before storing, the cocoons are stifled in electric hot air ovens for a few hours. This is better than sun drying, which takes many months. To loosen the sticky thread, the cocoons are boiled. The conventional way gives poor results. With improved methods, the cocoons are steamed under pressure, soaked in a detergent, and partially dried. The silk fibers are too fine to handle singly. About 6 threads are taken together and reeled. Skill is required in reeling. But by traditional methods, even deft fingers can spin barely 100 grams in 8 hours. A new foot-operated reeler made by the CTRS gives a high yield, 450 grams in 8 hours. At last, the pure silk, gossamer fine, like spun moonbeams. Nothing that the silkworm spins is thrown away. After the best thread is removed, the waste makes what is called spun yarn. From the damaged cocoon comes ghicha yarn, hand-drawn, untwisted. This, then, is the story of tasar. The story spun by a tiny worm living in a marvelous little house made of silk.